It's more to the picture than meets the eye. I'm John Horrigan, and I'm joined by legendary sports photographer Steve Babineau, behind the lens with Babs. Babs, 50 years of sports photography, Boston Bruins, National Hockey League, World Hockey Association, Boston Red Sox, baseball cards, hockey cards, Boston Celtics, Westerns, concerts, Neil Young, Pearl Jam, and more. Babs, how are you, buddy?
I'm great, bud. How are you?
Excellent. Thank you so much. So in this one, we're going to talk about the old Boston Garden. This is actually a great photo of you, but is it the garden?
No, this is the new barn. This is the new barn. This would have been probably prior to the Chicago Blackhawks Stanley Cup season. Stanley Cup playoff game at the Garden. This would have been Brian, my son, installing a camera in this particular goal. You can see the crossbar at the top of the frame there, the red bar. And I'm just doing a test where I'm standing there and I have the trigger in my pocket. And this is technically what you see, in a game with bodies flying everywhere and the puck's coming at the net 100 miles an hour.
Wow.
But this would have been maybe the focus point right here, that we would have set the camera up, pre-focused it on that position where I'm standing. And, I just think it's a cool picture that, people normally would not see. And Brian ended up having the Sports Illustrated cover when Chicago beat us in the Garden that year, when I'm trying to think of who scored the goal for Chicago, but he was off to the right and he shot the puck just from around the faceoff circle, and Brian had clicked the camera and had Tuukka diving across, but the puck going right into the net. And it ended up being a Sports Illustrated cover shot.
Good for Brian.
His first cover with Sports Illustrated. This is the old Garden. This is the old Garden in the Don Cherry ending of the career for Don Cherry and the changeover to Freddie Creighton. But, like I said, back in the day, Grapes had taken me in, and, I got a good relationship with a lot of the players, and in the optional practice days, if I wasn't doing anything, I was able to go into the Garden and skate with the players. And, I remember doing that quite a few times. And this is my buddy Al Secord, who became friends and used to hang over our house and eat my wife's Italian food and play floor hockey with the kids back in the day. And, so this is early, this is in that, maybe I'm going to say, Cherry came in 74, 75 and stayed around 78, 79. So this is probably when Al's first year was with the Bruins, probably,
78, 79.
Yeah. So, this is in that window right there. So, again, here's me and Ray. And the thing that's kind of sentimental about this picture for me now is that who took the picture? And Brad McCrimmon took this picture.
Oh.
Brad McCrimmon took this picture, and the two rookies, McCrimmon
R.I.P.
and Ray Bork. And we all know that Brad was killed in that plane crash over in Europe when it crashed. He was coaching over there. So, this picture, I think I made sure this was in black and gold, and the photo credit is Brad McCrimmon on the photo in the picture. But, there I am. I'm like 6'5" on skates, 6'4" anyway. You know what I mean? Pencil neck geek, really. But, just I'd go on the ice and, stand in the corner and pass the puck out to the guys who were skating in, taking shots and doing the, taking slap shots from the point. And it was just so cool. It was just so cool to be, in that environment playing and being around these guys, so.
Yeah. And Babs, you both get a minus in this picture because the puck is across the goal line.
This would have been just a setup shot, again, just, I think we were closing in on the end of the Garden, and they wanted to put out a certain program for the last hurrah. And what I did was the Sports Museum had been started at the time, and I believe it was over at Soldiers Field Road at the time in Cambridge. That's where it originally was set up. And I remember talking to the guys over there, Dick Johnson and somebody else at the time and saying, is there any chance I could get some memorabilia brought over to the Garden? And, the next thing you know, I'm sitting there and I have Eddie Shore's shirt. I've got a Bobby Orr shirt, and I think that's a replica old style shirt there, but that really is Eddie Shore's shirt. And you can see, if you look at that sleeve, you can see that sleeve going down, how marked up it is and scarred and ripped and whatever.
Blood.
Those I believe are an old pair of skates from some goaltender back in the day. Might have been Eddie Johnson. That's an Orr shirt on the floor. And I don't know whose shirt that is, that other number 4. But then you got a couple of program covers there, media guide covers, and then I brought some hockey cards in. And that bear, I think, was on somebody's desk in the office. It might have been actually on Mr. Adams's desk. And that came out of the Sports Museum as well. And there's two classic chairs right there that are out of the old Garden. And I actually have, I don't think I can pick it right here. I have a
Babs, that sounds like a scene out of Sling Blade when you drag the chair.
I have a single number 4 seat just like that that I got out of the Garden at the Garden auction. And Bobby actually signed that for me. You can see his signature right under the 4 there.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean, so this was something that I shot that they were going to probably, I think they did use in the program from the last game. And, it was, I remember it being in the Garden many, many days before that last game or at the end of that last regular season, just walking around and just shooting different positions, different spots. I got shots that you would see the seats, empty building. You would just see the rows of seats and the penalty box, where the off-ice officials at the penalty box would do the scoring. It was just me with a camera trying to document it. You know what I mean? And this is kind of cool. This was a cool setup shot. But it was in the dressing room of the old Garden.
In the ticket there, Babs, $1.50, Section 13, row L, seat 8. Is that 1938 or 1928?
It's I believe that might have been one of the first games, if not the first. It says November 20th, 1928.
Okay.
So that might have been, you'd have to go back and see if that was the first game, but October, November, I don't, they played a lot less games in those days, I think. So,
yeah.
But again, there's a good shot where I'm in the building all by myself, other than the guys working the building, but I'm in the building and, the banners, the talk about the banners of all the teams, Celtics, Bruins, some of the retired numbers there.
They had retired DJ's number by then.
Yeah. You can see there's only a few retired numbers there. Shore, Hitchman, Clapper, Espo. I think that's Espo. Bobby's number is going to be there probably behind the Thanks for the Memories banner. But, you could see how small the clock was. There was no Jumbotron, how close the balcony was to the arena floor. You could see the TV booth there to the left. You can see the cameras still in position. And, the balcony seats were great seats. If you were like in those first 6, 7 rows, you were like right looking down on it. And,
like right field in Old Tiger Stadium. You're hanging out.
Yeah. And I mean, this would have been let me look at this real quick. This is the Zamboni Corner right here where the Zamboni would come off and go under the stands and go down into the concourse level where the fans were and dump and go out the back into a ramp and dump the snow.
Wow.
You can see the Thanks for the Memories logo at center ice. And you can see that the 2 benches are on this side, the right side, and the glass is there enclosed on the whole length of the ice going down the other side, except for that one doorway after where the red line is. Just where the red line is, there's one pane of glass that's out there. But, it was just unbelievable. It was old. It was old. It was antique, but it was a great place to be You know,
Oh, to watch the Bruins, the Celtics, a concert there was outrageous. 2 questions, Babs. Number 1, tell me a story about seeing a rat, not talking about Ken Linsman. And number 2, talk about the catwalks upstairs.
catwalks. Let me point out one other thing real quick here. If you look down in this left-hand corner here, you can see those 2 yellow seats right there where the Zamboni would come out. There's 2. But then that next row of 3, you see that down in right there?
Mm-hmm.
That next row of 3,
Mm-hmm.
those are in my house in Florida.
Neat. And where are those ones? The one you have that you showed me, where are those? Where were those from? Over here?
What do you mean? I don't know what you mean by that.
The ones that you showed me tonight, where did they come from?
That's at the studio. This is at the studio up here in Methuen. This one Bobby Orr seat is up here. But there's 3 right here is in my Florida property in my man cave in Florida.
Oh, that's awesome. That is awesome. Now, rats and catwalks.
Yeah, I mean, I remember sitting in the penalty box on that far side when there was no glass, you know what I mean? And we'd be in there, and me and the off-ice official would be in the visiting team's penalty box, and all of a sudden there'd be a hole in the floor, and there'd be popcorn on the floor, and all of a sudden the game would be going on, and this rat or mouse would come out of the floor and grab the popcorn kernel and take it back into the hole and take off under the stands. I remember one night, one of them got out on the ice, and I believe Cash went around and kind of like stick handles it a little bit, not aggressively or whatever, but kind of like pushed it over to the Bruins bench, and then
so it could grandfather 100 more rats.
Yeah. I mean, the Garden, you go in the catwalk, and the catwalk, you can see in this picture right here, that center truss that went right down over the ice, dead center over the ice. That was a walkway that you could walk down, and these were other off ramps, that one crossing right there. So I remember, going up there against Montreal the first time and sitting at that junction right there, that cross, and shooting down on Ken Dryden at this goal right here. And we had come back and scored 3 goals in the 3rd period, and we tied the game. And the building was so loud, so noisy, that the bottom line was that walkway started to do this. And I immediately sat down, and I remember Frank O'Brien, a great Boston Globe photographer, said, if you're going to go up there, make sure you take everything out of your pockets. Take everything out of your pockets. Only go up there with one camera with a lens on it, and if you're going to take another roll of film, put it in your pocket. Don't have it out hanging. Just, they didn't want anything to fall out of your pocket, all of a sudden fall down on the ice.
Oh, wow.
But I remember that vividly, that the building was rocking and that catwalk was rocking along with it. But, every game in the Garden, when I had installed the strobes, so I had strobes that went from that far blue line, flashes that went from that far blue line down to this goal down here.
Can we see them, Babs? Can we see the strobes here?
You really can't. They're up a little bit higher than, no, you can't really see them there. But, yeah, well, actually you can, because that flash right there that's going off over to the left.
To the right.
Right over here to the left. Oh, no, over here on the left side, right there, that flash, that is my strobe. That is my flash going off right there. So I had from that far blue line, red line, down to this corner, Zamboni Corner goal, shot with strobes. You can see how the light fades out down the far end there. You see how it gets a little darker, okay? So I was creating my own light in this one area here, and this big blast over here to the right. Yeah, that's a strobe going off, but it's hitting that Celtics banner. Some of it's flaring into that Celtics banner.
Right.
But every game, if you were in the Garden back in the day, I was in the Garden when there was no elevator. And then they put one single elevator in that literally could hold about 4 people. And it went up to the balcony, but I literally walked from the press room area, which was level 3, up to the catwalk door, which was like level 9. Wow. Every single game, to walk across that catwalk pregame to turn on the power packs. They had to be manually turned on, okay, and whatever. then eventually years went on later that they wired them all together, and they had a toggle switch down in the electrical room where they would turn. They had two. They called it a red circuit and a blue circuit, and I was on the blue circuit. And all I had to do is go to the electrician and say, "Can you turn on the blue circuit?" And when they turned on that blue circuit, the packs came on. But for maybe, 3 or 4 years, I had to walk up in that catwalk and turn those packs on, and then go back to that catwalk after the game to turn them off. And so many times. This would have been my seat going to an obstructed view.
LA Kings, the Kings.
LA Kings going into the game on an obstructed view seat, which was last row in the balcony behind the goal. And me being as tall as I was, it didn't really affect me that much compared to, say, somebody else. But again, bringing a primitive camera, the old style Bruin uniform with the gold bars, that's Espo carrying the puck there. Haji on the side, looks like Dallas Smith crossing over the red line. Rogie Vachon in the goal. Harry Howell, number 3.
Wow.
There. And that
Arnie Brown, number 5, no.
That might be Artie Brown, and for some reason I got Juha Whiting in my mind for that LA King on the left-hand side.
Yep. Whiting, yep.
And maybe
Frank St. Marseille.
Frank St. Marseille following behind Dallas Smith. And I don't know who that defenseman is right there for the Bruins, that other defenseman. But this would have been my view. But I didn't have the lens that got me down to the ice. I just had this. But again, I'm in the old garden with those uniforms right there. That's got to be 71, 71, 72,
Wow.
So that's right after we won probably the Stanley Cup in 69, 70. But that's me going to a game and buying a ticket. But probably before this game, I was down at the glass shooting warm-ups over the glass, so I was close to the players.
Wow.
This is me later on when here's a clear example of the strobes going off. You can see the strobe on the right-hand side over there going off on the right-hand side up in the catwalk, flashing. And the other one is flashing on the left-hand side, hitting the Bruins banner. So this would be, and you can see how the light falls off down the other end, okay? My position didn't justify me putting another 2 strobes in the other end. I did eventually when Brian started to come with me, and those 2 lights down the other end were controlled by him, and I still stayed in my window of a 4-light setup and gave him 2 lights just to shoot that far end and just stay focused in that end. And so, he honed his skills doing that and, kind of impressed me very much at 15, 16 years old, taking pictures.
Sure. Then the next one.
Again, just a sort of a panoramic, wide angle view of, again, it's the last year. So it's sentimental to me. You can see the thanks for the memories at center ice there for sure. Logo there. And this might have actually been the day of the last game. And I was probably in there at 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock in the afternoon before, anybody was going to show up. And, you see the numbers retired. I focus more on the Bruins end of it, but the yellow seats and, just, think about it. It's the oldest, right? It's the oldest arena, at that time. Chicago Stadium might have been same era, time frame, maybe not, but I think Boston Garden was 1928. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and so I was the last announcer to call boxing out of the old Boston Garden.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yep.
Cool.
Yep.
Ricky Smith.
This is that night in the catwalk that I was telling you about, where the catwalk was rocking. You can see here's Ricky Smith, a defenseman, storming the crease, storming the net, and this is Ken Dryden in goal, and this would have been me looking down from that cross beam in the catwalk, looking down on the goal, and I remember going up there and I'm not going to say a lot, but just to get a different angle. You know what I mean? I don't like to be repetitive all the time and shooting from the same position, so I try to move around during a game. So I'm sure this game I probably shot out of the penalty box, the first period at least, maybe another location the second period, and then I found myself upstairs in the third period.
Yeah. And Babs, we showed a picture last show of Bobby Clark taking Ricky Smith's temperature, but it looks like Dougie Risebrough is doing the same here to him.
Yep, absolutely. He's got it's definitely a hook for sure right there.
Yeah. Now I know that's Bill Nyrop because it's OP right on his knees. Who do you think that Bruin is just behind Risebrough?
I can't see because I'm blocked here. So
Okay.
I can't see who that is.
Well, either way, on another day. Now it isn't the Boston Garden, Babs. It isn't until you have fog.
This would have obviously been late in the season, probably playoffs. You can probably figure that out by the uniforms that the Whalers are wearing. They're wearing pants and not pants and socks. They attempted to try to do this and play with sweatpants in the color of the Whalers uniform. But bottom line is this has got to be in the playoff June time frame, or maybe just before June time frame.
Yeah, because I don't think Hartford ever played in June.
Yeah. So, I mean, this is, there was no air conditioning in the Garden. All they had was vents and fans, and this would have been what you saw as the game went on. And eventually when we did play Edmonton in the playoffs, in the Stanley Cup, they were stopping the game, and the players would skate around in a circle in their own end to make the fog lift and then go back and drop the puck. So you talk about momentum. You might have had a momentum going, getting 15 shots on goal like in a certain period of time, but then all of a sudden they had to stop the game because the goalie couldn't see the puck anymore. And then they would do that and it would go up. But I mean, this is just
Park and O'Connell.
That's O'Connell, Park. That's Ritzelainen on the defensive core. They're number 8. And this guy's name, I got
Evison, Dean Evison.
No, I don't think it's Emerson. It's another. I think it's a U.S. player, played in college, but played.
Mark Johnson.
Mark Johnson, number 12. Yes, Mark Johnson. Good call. Mark Johnson.
And Barry Peterson to the far left.
Barry Peterson to the far left. Yeah.
So there it got knocked down. Then it was on to the Fleet Center. But like you were saying, thanks for the memories. The old Garden, a lot of history there.
You can see how close the Garden is to the old building. It literally would, arms width. It was that close up against it. You know what I mean? And they couldn't. What is the word? Implode the building and knock it down. They had to take it, chisel it down piece by piece. And I remember they took this right side of the building off first.
This side over here, right?
Yeah, where the Boston Garden banner is. They took that side off. And if you remember, the Southeast Expressway was an elevated passageway through the city of Boston before the Big Dig. And I remember getting access as they were demolishing the building stone by stone, brick by brick. And I went in and I took a picture of the inside of the Garden when it was, all the seats were taken out. There was stuff thrown on the floor, on the rink surface floor. But I took a picture where you could see the Southeast Expressway and the traffic going by the over ramp from the inside of the Garden looking out.
Wow.
And I remember we made a poster print that year where we took the first game played in the Garden in 1928, the national anthem, and we took the last game in the Garden, national anthem, 95. We photoshopped the two together, but we left the side of the building off. We took the picture and we put the players that were in the photos, in those two photos, on the floor surface, okay, but left the building all emptied with the hole in the wall.
Wow, that's awesome. I'd love to see that. Do you think you still have that? Maybe we could show that.
I got it somewhere. It's somewhere. Yeah.
And then came the Winter Classics. I've been blessed enough to partake in 2 Winter Legends Classics with the alumni players, both at Fenway and Gillette. But this is Fenway Park. I remember the magic going around when they were going to play hockey outdoors.
Yeah, this is me shooting for the National Hockey League along with Brian, and I was hired to do the build-out photos of the rink being built from the scratch to the finish. So I had been in, and I'm working for the Red Sox at the time. So, I had the magic key that got me into the building whenever I wanted to go in, and the people at Fenway knew who I was. And So, from the day that they started unloading gear onto the field and setting up the piping, I was doing the build out photos and sending them down to the NHL. And so the rink is up, it's totally built. And all of a sudden this night before I'm going to bed, it was going to start snowing. And I remember waking up about 2:30, 3 o'clock in the morning and looking outside and seeing the snow coming down. And then I'm just thinking about what's it look like at Fenway Park? What's it look like at Fenway Park? And I got in my car and I drove over to Fenway Park and I sat behind home plate and literally just waited, because when I first got there, the pitcher's mound area right here where you can see that little bit of snow, you can see a little bit of the tarp there showing, that was all bare. But as it kept snowing and snowing and snowing, it started to get covered. And I waited to a point where I felt it was, covered enough to take this picture.
What time do you think it was?
Oh, I was probably about, I'm going to say 4 a.m. in the morning, probably 4 a.m. in the morning, 4:30, somewhere in that 4 a.m. time frame. And it was cool because, they had all these lights on. They had all these lights on when I walked in. So it wasn't like, the field was going to be in total darkness. It was, but the Coca-Cola sign was lit. You see what I'm saying? And because it was throwing this burst, so you could see the Citgo sign, the John Hancock sign, and so I remember walking around the ballpark in the snow, walking around the seats and just shooting different things, and working for the Sox as well as the Bruins and the NHL. It was pretty cool experience to do this.
And I remember I was working the Winter Legends game with Jack Edwards, for Nesson, and we were over in the shortstop area right about here. Yeah, that was great. And the NHL called it from here, I believe, on the ramp or a stage.
Yep.
Now, here we go.
Now, this is me just going in early one morning. Sun was coming up. They were renting out the ice to companies to play games, and I think they started at like 5 a.m. or something like that when they started to rent out the ice for these pickup games that some guys were doing. And what I did is I just brought in some jerseys out of my jersey collection. The two old timer ones there are replicas, and this black one in the middle is a modern style Bruins jersey, but it was number 5, Dick Clapper, but it obviously he never wore that jersey. And this other shirt over here is number 11. For some reason, it's PJ. I think it's PJ Axelson, maybe, or it's I don't know. I can't remember whose it really was, but I just brought it in and set this up on a chair, and the goaltender. This is a pair of goaltender skates that came from the ice crew that had built the arena out for the NHL. It was somewhat sentimental because I believe the guy originally was a member of the ice crew for the NHL that was doing these, and he passed away, but they had his skates, and I took them and I put it on this chair and just shot it, and just to get a picture of that. And I remember that the main ice crew guy, I'm trying to think of Dan Craig. Dan Craig had said that he'd like to get a copy of that picture so he could send it to the guy that passed, his wife. And so we did that, being in Fenway Park. But again, it's just, I don't know, creativity, just, going in there early morning and shooting some more stuff, you know what I mean? So.
Yeah, and that's the best light too, as a photographer, right? It is the morning light, right? The red morning light.
Well, yeah, I mean, when you're outdoors like that, for sure, or you want a gray, cloudy day, you don't want to deal with sunlight. Shooting baseball, you don't want to deal with, shooting a game at, late in the afternoon when the sun is coming down, and you got the shadows or whatever. You want to shoot it at high noon, if possible, in that 1 o'clock time frame when you have the light directly above, and you can make an adjustment in your camera, and you can get away with it for about 45 minutes to an hour before you might have to make another adjustment as the sun changes, in position.
And then, of course, we've only spoken about Fenway for hockey, but we have a lot more to come in terms of the Red Sox at Fenway Park. Well, Babs, we're at the conclusion of another episode. And let me tell you, it's been great. I really appreciate you coming onto the show and talking about the Boston Garden. We still have a few more photos about Fenway Park that we'll go over in another installment. But thank you so much for joining us, Babs, on More to the Picture Than Meets the Eye with Steve Babineau. Thanks, Babs.
All the best, bud.
Okay, we'll see you.